Welcome back, everybody, to The Fungus Among Us. I'm Kelly.
And I am Paul, and on this episode of The Fungus Among Us, we are going to be discussing Season 1, Episode 8 of The Last of Us, When We Are in Need.
All right, let's dive in. You know what I discovered today?
What?
I discovered oat-based whipped cream. And so I am primarily on a vegan diet. And so I was so excited about this oat-based whipped cream. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to try it on my coffee. It's delicious. It's like heaven in a cup. Have you ever put whipped cream on your coffee?
No, that would gross me out. I don't like my coffee to be sweet at all.
So yeah, having a vegan-based diet, let's talk about this episode.
Oh, yeah, that's a great segue.
Jesus, as what's his name? God, David would say it a couple times. Or no, his minions. Jesus.
Yeah, he said it too. They were super into Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, Jesus was a proponent of cannibalism, because his whole thing was like, oh, this is my body that you eat. This is my blood that you drink, that whole deal,
I mean, but it was taken to a level just like in the game that I was like, oh my God. Ugh. I have mixed feelings about this episode, as I do every episode. Of course, I loved it. Having played the Left Behind game not too long ago and watching this episode, I feel like these characters play David very differently. But for some reason, I found the TV show version of David to be much more like menacing, much more creepy. And like, I think the backstory really helped elevate his character. Because you don't really get into their community in the game. And something that I felt like really set up his character very well and who he was is, I don't think it was venison. I'm pretty sure it was like that girl's father, was when they were all at the dinner table and like he had this giant bowl of food, whereas like everyone else had these scraps that they were just like shuffling into their mouths, and like David's sitting there with like a giant bowl of whatever it was. I'm assuming that young girl's father.
It was the dad. But, yeah, and there was that shot. I mean, the girl straight up ate the stew. I mean, there was that very intentional shot of her eating the stew. Like that little girl ate her dad,
You know what was really interesting? It was to see Troy Baker in this role. You and I had we mentioned it at some point. We wondered what role he was going to play. I knew they were not going to cast him as David. I figured he was going to have kind of that role of like some sort of cannibal supporter of David, but like it was so weird because Troy Baker is Joel in the game, and I had such a hard time separating myself watching Ellie get shot by Troy Baker / what's his name in the show? James?
Yeah, I don't remember.
I think it was James. I don't know. How did you feel? Like, did it come across your mind at all that this was our Joel?
I mean, yeah, I thought about it. I didn't have strong feelings about him playing a villain in the episode. I mean, as you may recall, I thought that might be the case. I thought maybe he would. I was thinking how cool it would be if he played David. I didn't think he would. But, I was also kind of doing the math on what happens in the story, in the last couple episodes since he hadn't showed up yet. And I was like, well, I guess he's going to probably have to be a bad guy. So I don't know. I was cool. I was really happy to see him. I would have liked more of him.
I thought it was a great choice to cast him as a villain. I just had a hard time separating myself from him as Joel, even though he didn't have the Joel voice. Maybe I thought I heard it once, but I've watched so many like interviews with him, and it's like, okay, this is Joel, and I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah, I can dig it. I think probably too for me, part of it now is that Pedro Pascal has replaced video game Joel so thoroughly in my mind that I'm like, I even like when I'm playing the game now, as I have been, as I've been watching the show, if I'm just like playing the game and looking at the back of Joel's head, I always feel like it's Pedro Pascal's face on the other side of that head, you know?
That's so funny. Same. I feel the same way.
Like, I read some think piece that was criticizing the character of David for sort of starting out feeling like a really complex villain. And then in the end, they reveal that he's essentially just like an evil pedophile. And they felt that that was sort of like a corny, like overly simplistic thing to do with the character. And then I was talking to a friend of mine who is watching the show but has not played the game, and he felt the same way. Although, to be fair, he might have just read that think piece and then just kind of repeated what he'd read. But I was wondering
Mhm.
if perhaps that might be because, like, if you've played the game and you already know what David turns out to be, it's just like you were just waiting for that all along. But maybe in the show they made him so complex in the first part that it's almost like it pulls you in another direction, and you're not ready for him to be revealed to just be this purely evil scumbag.
I'd have to read the think piece, but I just don't agree with that. I mean, I don't know. Again, I have to read the piece, but I felt as though within the time constraint of the show, like how long it is, like I was impressed how much they were able to pack in this episode. And I felt the progression was natural to me and that he was becoming more menacing. I don't think it was thrown in there at the end that he was a pedophile. I mean, when he captures Ellie and puts her in that cage and they have their one-on-one conversation, he is revealing to her how he kind of relates or sees violence in her and talks about how beautiful the cordyceps are and like you're really given this picture of how he finds beauty in evil. And I'm like, okay, I mean, he already eats people. I felt in that moment too, while Ellie was in the cage and he was trying to lure her in, have her become this little wife or something. Like it was clear to me what his intentions were. And in the end, when he tried to sexually assault her, I was only thrown by that because I don't think that happens in a game. Having been someone that has been assaulted, I was so overwhelmed, of course. I'd be curious to read that think piece to give like a better response, but I don't think it was corny. I felt like it was a horrible, horrible, horrible person that she unfortunately came across.
Yeah, I mean I agree with you in the interpretation. I felt the same way about it. I thought he was pretty consistent. And if any, like, they kind of went farther than the game, both with that
Yeah.
choice to have him assault her at the end there, but also I think in the scene where she's in the cage, he was much more explicit in his proposal that he wanted it to be a romantic partnership. Because if I
Right.
recall, and it's been a while since I played that part of the game, but I think in the game, he's you get the sense that that's what's on his mind, but he's playing his cards much closer to his vest. In the show, he just comes out and says it. So I don't know. Maybe I didn't do a
100%. Yeah.
very good job of communicating what the think piece was trying to say. I think maybe the criticism was just that, and I may be mixing it up with the conversation I had with my friend. I
Yeah.
think the criticism may have, well, whatever. I mean, I'm not going to try to recap a think piece that I only sort of remember.
I
But
mean, it's tough though, because I could see how maybe that would be out there, or that thought about David and his role. But again, just based on what you told me and trying to have like a super honest reaction, I'm like, I don't know, man. Like people can be creepy and don't need a lot of time to have that reveal. My God. And then the way she kills him, I did watch a like comparison. Oh my God. Also another great performance.
yeah, no, I know it was amazing. I really love it when characters righteously slaughter a bad guy and stuff. Like I love scenes like that, especially if there's a lot of screaming and blood flying. So I just find it very
And just
cathartic to
the
watch scenes like that.
fire in the background was like she was enraged, and it just was so well done. I would love to get into another conversation you and I have been having about Joel and Ellie.
Yeah.
Yeah, in regards to Joel and Ellie, we're talking about progression here. I'm really curious how the finale is going to unfold because if it weren't for their phenomenal performances, I would be a little detached from them as like a team. Because in Kin, we skip like 3 months of their, traveling together. I just feel, and I'll probably always feel this way, that Joel and Ellie kind of needed, I think, to endure more situations where they were like, it was just the two of them maybe running from, these bad guys, or like a whole episode where where it's just them trying to escape something or survive something, if that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that there is like this weird underlying thing, and I honestly don't know. I feel like this is one of those things where I can never really know what I think, because I try to be as objective as possible when I evaluate art, you know? I mean, even though technically it's impossible to be objective, but like you can look at things and make sort of objective statements about craft. And so I'm always trying to do that. I try to be pretty analytical, but with something like this, like I'll never actually know how I feel about certain things in the show because I'm coming into it with all of these attachments to the story and the characters, right? So
Same.
like
Yeah.
I mean, on the one hand, I can always watch this show and be fully emotionally invested in Joel and Ellie because I was already carrying this profound investment in when I started watching the show. But now we're getting very close to the end. We've got one episode left. A lot of people that I know have expressed the feeling, and I've read some of this take online and stuff too, that like Joel and Ellie's relationship hasn't quite been developed to the point where people are feeling it the way that they want to be. And there's a million different ways that you
Mm.
could sort of approach that and ways that you could pick apart the show. I think the one thing that you can't possibly fault is the performances. Like you said, I think that the
Right.
performances are delivering that relationship 100%. But I'm wondering, is the show falling short in that area? Is it just my preconceptions that make me kind of feel like it is? Is it, you know, I think that there's a couple different ways to think about it, but I see where you're coming from.
It is tough to navigate these waters, but, like, I don't know. I mean, even my parents who are watching the show, even what I'm getting from them is like, "Oh, there's only one more episode left? Like, something's missing."
Right.
And I
I
was
I've
like, "Oh, wow, my parents are thinking that." But they absolutely too agree that, Pedro and Bella are phenomenal, and so I think there's that balance where w there's something missing, and, like, maybe I don't know. It's hard for me to be openly critical because this game saved, like, my life during a hard time, like, we talked about it in episode 1, or whatever episode, but it's our attachment to these characters. We've been these characters. It's not just that, like, "Oh, well, we've gone through this journey." We've been these characters. We've lived in their perspective. So I think it's hard to kind of just disassociate from that and think, "Okay, well, yeah, the performances are phenomenal, so that's making up for what we feel is missing." But
That's
I
one thing that
don't
we
think
know for
yeah.
sure is there. Performance is
Yeah.
clutch. So I mean, I think about I have two different ways of thinking about this, you know, like the question of did we get enough Joel and Ellie? I think that the scenes that we have are good. In terms of writing, I feel like there's a pretty clear relationship arc on paper in the show. Performance, obviously, no problem. So I have two different thoughts on things that may have helped me at least feel like that relationship was being more developed, you know?
Oh, man,
Um,
break it down for me, because like, maybe
a-
that'll help me process my thoughts.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know what would have been the right answer. Like I don't like to try to rewrite a TV show because like what do I know? I don't know why choices were made or um you know what different
Mhm.
pressures were on the artists as they were making these choices. But
Yeah.
one thing that is a key difference is that the show sort of structures itself like an ensemble cast and it follows other characters and like it has tangent episodes like long time is basically a tangent episode and then left behind it keeps us with Ellie, so that's less of a
Yeah,
tangent. But
kind of
you
can
know
yeah.
in the game, you are either Joel or Ellie 100% of the time. You never go into any other points of view. And the show, in every episode, is breaking you outside of their point of view pretty frequently. And I wonder if perhaps, especially, if it would have helped us stay more connected with their relationship if it had had that same convention as a game, which is that it's only ever telling the story from their point of view. Maybe every now and then at the beginning of an episode you flash back to the beginning of the outbreak or whatever, but like
Right.
they're making the choice to do like a half-hour short film about Bill and Frank, which is like a beautiful short film, but then it's just kind of wedged into a Last of Us episode where it doesn't totally fit, even though they tied it in thematically. I mean, it's this beautiful love story, but really, like, you know, the part of it that's relevant to the main story of the show is kind of summarized in that letter in like 2 minutes of screen time. And then in the same way, like through the whole arc with Kathleen and Henry and Sam, we get scenes from Kathleen's point of view and Henry and Sam's point of view, and they're cool.
I
They don't
loved
suck.
those though.
No, I mean
I
I liked them.
loved them. I
Well, sure.
loved
Look,
them.
I love the Bill and Frank thing, right? Like I every
Oh,
individual
yeah,
piece
no, I
of this
mean
is good. But taken as a whole, when we're spending that much time collectively away from Joel and Ellie for characters that, let's face it, are only going to be around for an episode and then die, like is that really the best way for the show to be spending its screen time?
yeah, I mean, I think I was a little surprised that it was just gonna be 9 episodes, and the fact that the finale is, like, 40 some minutes, I'm like, "Okay, well, they better have the giraffes."
Yeah,
That's
they gotta
important.
have, dude. If they don't have the giraffes, the
I
next
think they
episode of this
do.
podcast is going to be just an hour of us complaining
We
about that.
riot.
Yeah, we're gonna riot.
We're just gonna send everybody mushrooms.
I'm gonna
The
say,
fun
I'm gonna say,
kind.
I'm gonna say this right now. If they don't put in the giraffes, I'm not watching season 2. I'm donezo.
No, you're not.
Yeah, you're
Lies.
right. No, yeah, I
Such
know that was total
lies.
bullshit. Yeah, but okay, check this out. So here's option two. Option
Okay.
one would be stay rooted in Joel and Ellie's point of view the whole time, right? That might have helped. Option two is simply put in some more action scenes and some more scenes of them being in danger and surviving together, because like that's all the
Right, like,
game is. Is them relying on each other to get through these crazy scenarios. It actually doesn't happen very much in the show.
I
you
think
know
that yeah, I think that's where I was trying to anchor my point earlier is just they really did need at least one episode of just the 2 of them where they're surviving something, where they're in danger and need to, as you said, rely on each other. Of course, they fit it in these pieces, but it's like as a show and digesting like this father-daughter relationship that is forming, it's like, okay, it would have been cool to see especially it's I think what makes it harder is that because they're such good actors, it's like, "We need more."
Yeah, it does. It makes you want them, more of them. And well, also I think
That's effective if that's the plan.
yeah, no, that is good. That is what you want. But I but yeah, like in a show about this like post-apocalyptic world where it's full of raiders and cannibals and infected, Joel and Ellie have only really been in direct danger a handful of times in a 9-episode season so far.
Yeah, they really I
And
really will say I'm bummed there wasn't, like, another clicker scene that was pretty extreme with, like, Joel and Ellie because the whole I mean, I understand Ellie's getting this perspective of, like, humanity and what does it all mean, but it's like she's feeling like she's on a mission to save the world, and it's like, I wanna see her survive another clicker.
Yeah,
like
totally.
earlier on. Like, yeah.
Same here. I mean, look, we're 8 episodes in and really we've had 2 real infected scenes, unless I'm forgetting something, right? Like there was the clicker part in episode
In
2
the museum.
and in the museum, and
Um,
then there was the big infected
which was
battle.
so cool.
I mean, it was great. Yeah, they've done 2 really cool infected scenes, and then the infected have popped up here and there. There was the guy chasing Joel and Sarah through the diner in the first episode,
That was
and there
so
was
good. I was like, "There's gonna be more of this, right?" And it's like,
right.
nope,
Not
there
much, not
wasn't.
much. I mean, I get that this is a prestige show, and I get that it's not the game, and it's not like I don't
Right.
know what's like. It's not like Walking Dead, but like that's about how much zombie stuff it should have. Like The Walking Dead didn't have a ton of zombie stuff, but it would pretty
I had a
reliably.
lot of zombie stuff.
Well, it fluctuated. It fluctuated. Yeah, that's true.
It
But like,
fluctuated, sure, but it was like it was a zombie show for
yeah,
sure.
it was. Well, yeah, and this okay, and fine. So we're not going to see the infected all the time in this, and we probably shouldn't. But I do think that they've gone a little too far in the other direction. It's very light on infected attacks. It's very light on action scenes, scenes of peril, and all of that would really make us feel like the characters were bonding more. I think, and it would just be cool, you know.
My dad was like, "But what about Joel and Ellie?" And I was like, "What about them?" He's like, "I wouldn't there be more?" And I was like, "Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe. I
that's
don't
what we
know."
thought. Yeah, that's what
And
we
I was
thought.
surprised because yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, and that's the other thing that is like episode count, right? Like, if it's gonna be 9 episodes, it probably should have just been with Joel and Ellie 100% of the time. If it's gonna be this like
Not
larger,
necessarily.
I think so. If it's gonna like
I
with the
mean,
scope that they have, like this larger scope, they should have made 12 episodes. Why wouldn't they? Like every other HBO show is like 10 to 12. Why this weird like 9 episode season?
yeah, it's an interesting choice, especially for something that we all knew, especially the gamers, was gonna be a huge hit. Um, and it is, and I just I think where I'm bumping with the dynamic a bit is when in terms of like feeling as connected as I would love to is when Joel says baby girl, I got you baby girl for the first time in like 20 years since his daughter had passed. It was I'd shared with you like I sobbed. It was a beautiful moment, like the way, she leans in for that hug. I mean, it's like it's hard because the show also does such a great job of like pulling me into these moments where I feel like, okay, like I even want to hug my own dad. But like then if I give myself that freedom of wandering off in my mind, I'm like, well, I mean, I guess they're that close. We didn't really see a lot of that. I don't know.
Yeah, we didn't. I don't feel like we grew into it. I just it's weird because it's like it's such a subjective weird thing. It's not like, and the
Yeah.
thing that's so weird about it is that every individual choice that's been made in the show, have thought was pretty cool, with like maybe one or two exceptions. But like a lot of the angles they've taken, the choices they've made, the side characters they've chosen to focus on, I've liked, you know? But now we're at this point where I'm like, I just don't feel like the cumulative effect is quite all the way there.
Who knows what they'll do with season 2, Maybe there'll be more of something. We don't even actually know how it's gonna end. They haven't like, we don't
Well,
know.
that's true. And another thing that a friend of mine brought up is that maybe part of the reason that we're feeling this way about Joel and Ellie's relationship arc is that they're doing it on purpose because they're sort of going to develop certain aspects of it more gradually and into season 2, you know?
I mean, they already have shared, if I understand, that season 2 will not encompass the entire season 2 of the game because it's just such a monster to you can't fit that into one season of a show. You just
Oh
can't.
yeah. No, I'm not surprised to hear
So,
that at
I
all. And
mean,
also,
yeah.
the game has so many flashbacks that it would make a lot of sense in a TV show to pick the story up pretty soon after the events of season 1, and then work into the events of the second game.
You know what's interesting to me when I'm thinking about is like season 1 of this TV show has, I think, done a great job of adapting the game of season 1. I mean, we'll see how it ends. I'm curious, at least from beginning to ending. Of course, characters, stories changed, all that is fine. What I'm interested in is, like, are they gonna change the format for season 2? Like, are we gonna dive into things earlier or later on? And is it, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm curious how season 2 is gonna reflect season 1 in terms of its, like, style and choices.
Right. Well, yeah, because in the game, the second game, there's a character that is introduced as kind of a mysterious figure, and then you learn more about their backstory as you go through the game. So, one thing I've been wondering is, in season 2 of the show, are they going to introduce this character chronologically earlier and have this character be less of a mystery, and instead have you follow their journey? You know?
Yeah, like, are they gonna do, like, a split between these different worlds and maybe even be more focused on these 2 different perspectives?
Yeah, I'm wonder. I
Like,
wouldn't be surprised if they did. I think that would be kind of
I
cool for a
hope they
TV show.
do.
Yeah.
I hope they do.
Yeah.
Um,
We're
I
talking very
think
ambiguously for those of
I
you who
know,
have
if
not played
everyone's
the
like, "What
second
the
game.
hell
Yeah,
are
everybody.
they talking about?" Like, you'll thank us, you know, a year or
Yeah.
so from now. I Oh my god, when is it gonna I'm just like, "It can't be just one more. It can't just be one more," and then it's like, we gotta wait, what, like a year? More than a year? I can't.
Well, you're gonna have to.
Something else I'd love to discuss is I have never feared Joel so much in the game or in the show as I did when he was torturing these 2 dudes. I was scared. I was like, "This is a version of Joel that I have not seen yet." It's like we knew about this version, but we haven't really seen it.
And it's funny because the scene isn't different at all. It's like, I think maybe even like line for line the exact same scene that we already saw in the game. So, but yeah, it is so much more terrifying in
It's
the show. I
close,
think part
yeah.
of it is that the dudes feel so much realer. In the game, you're just watching Joel do that to two of the cookie cutter enemies that you've been killing for like 20 hours. But in the show, it's these two real human beings that he's doing it to. So it's like, whoa, this is fucked up.
I mean, but no, it wasn't even that. It was just like Joel's facial expressions and like he was his ability for violence. I don't think if I mean, I can't really recall any other moments like this in the game where he's torturing, I mean, in the show where he's torturing somebody like this. Like, this for me though is another great moment to show that he will do anything to get to his it's so weird because it's not Shaman, that he will do anything for his family,
Yeah.
and I I I knew that this would be in the show. I don't know why, but this was dark. This was super dark, and
Yeah.
I loved it.
I loved it too. I loved it too. I mean, I'm really looking forward to this final episode. I feel like I'm going to have to do a lot of processing if it is missing one of the three things that I need from this episode. And if any of the three things are missing, it's going to be a lot for me to reckon with emotionally, but I'm going to give the show the benefit of the doubt because there's so much great stuff happening.
Yeah, even if those 3 things aren't fully met, I mean, the show is still there for me, like, it's
Yeah.
still one of my favorite experiences in television that I've had. So, I mean, and just storytelling wise and performances and actors, I mean, it's like we're lucky. For
We are so
We are
lucky. We're so
so
blessed.
lucky
We
to
are.
to be able to watch this show.
It's
Um,
true.
and
And I
so,
think that
yeah.
also the way that I always feel about these things is that like when the show is coming out, it's one kind of a viewing experience, but then in another month or two, once the fever has sort of died down a bit, and it'll be a whole different experience to be able to watch the show, without having to wait for the new episodes, without being in that mode of like scrutinizing everything and worrying that it's not going to meet expectations, or, constantly speculating about how they're going to handle things. So, it could be a completely different experience. As a matter of fact, you know what we should do? Once the show's all out, we should give it a little while and then both like rewatch the whole thing and do another episode. Wouldn't that be interesting?
Yeah, no, like a whole binge watch, and then
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. We should both binge watch it and then really like break down like what do we feel the same about? What do we feel different
yeah.
about? What do we notice this time? That'd be cool.
And again, if you can tell us, what are those 3 things that you're looking out for in the finale of season 1?
Spoiler warning for anybody who doesn't know what's going to happen. I'm about to reveal it. But thing number 1, I want one crazy ass infected sequence,
Mhm.
which there is
I
one at this
agree.
point in the game. It's a key story moment. I want to see a crazy ass infected sequence. Number 2, the giraffes have to be in it 100%. And number 3, when Joel goes on his rampage at the end, I want it to be fucked up, really violent, and like, I want it to be juicy, and I want it to be a long sequence, and I want it to be shocking.
Yeah, and we're supposed to probably revisit Marlene here,
That's right.
and that gets crazy.
That's what I'm
Um,
talking about. Yeah, so I want those
that's
3
a
things.
lot packed in 40 something minutes.
I know, but that's plenty
So,
of time to do it. They got time.
yeah. No, I am on a similar boat. I'm really looking forward to our reactions. I almost think that we should wait and not talk about it at all with each other until we record.
Okay, I'll commit to that. No discussion of any kind until the mics are hot.
Yes. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. I am super excited to see the finale.
That's right. We're in the home stretch now, people. So let's brace ourselves and let's enjoy this final episode of season 1 of The Last of Us.
The fungus is among us.
The fungus among us.